Well, welcome everyone. I just want to introduce myself. My name is Ron O'Neill, as well as two fine gentlemen that are doing two courageous things over the next little while. Sean Sassoon, who is battling cancer right now, but is an incredible inspiration to many, many people out there, as well as Jordan Rossman, who unfortunately lost his father a number of years ago, but his bringing his inspiration and moving forward with cancer research and bringing it to the forefront. And what I'm going to do is, first of all, I would like to introduce Sean Sassoon first, who was just diagnosed later last year in 2015. And I've known Sean for many years, who's one of those people that he doesn't look at a problem, he finds a solution, and he's one of the taglines that has come out with his cancer diagnosis is keep smiling. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Sean.
Hey everyone, here I am. By the way, my name is Sean Sassoon, like Ron said, and it's true. Yeah, a few weeks ago, I recently learned that, of course, I have testicular cancer, and it's been a challenge, but I try to look at the right side of everything, and there've been a lot of great things that have come out of this. I have, of course, an upcoming battle to deal with in about another week or so. I start my chemotherapy, and of course I'm trying to go into it with the highest spirits I can. But I think that's the underlying thing, is not to let the negative cloud you. I mean, it's so easy when dealing with cancer to be brought down, and I just refuse to do it. I'm fighting it, and I'm trying to be as positive as I can, and that's about it. I mean,
Yeah, and one of the things, Sean, that we really noticed over the last month or so since your diagnosis, right from the beginning, you were kind of forging forward. You've built out a website already, haven't you?
Yeah, so essentially, when I was diagnosed, which was December 16th, I prepared for the surgery that I would have on right before New Year's Eve, December 30th. And following the surgery, I think it was New Year's Eve at nighttime, I was kind of, stuck in bed. I wasn't really going to be going out and watching fireworks and enjoying anything, but I suddenly had this motivation that, hey, I need to do something in order to raise awareness, to help people avoid the mistakes that I made, and really, shed some light on the situation. Testicular cancer, at least in the United States, is on the list, I think 26th in line for the killers. And so doctors, I personally think, don't take it as seriously when you visit them. So knowing all that and doing the research and seeing that the death rate was a low number, like 380, but that's still a death rate. It means people still die from it. I felt it was necessary to create a website. So literally at 2 a.m., right after New Year's, I bought a domain name and bought hosting and started to punch this thing out. I kind of surprised myself, because within, I think, about a 12-hour period, I had punched out this massive site with links and information and a log and the whole nine yards. And people, friends of mine and people I work with, were kind of looking at the site and saying, "How did you do this in quite literally 12 hours?" And I was just so motivated by the idea that I could help one person, and so that's what drove me to create the website. It's what drove me to, later on we'll talk about, the charity, and to just really do the best. I mean, going and creating a Facebook page, whatnot, to really just raise awareness and to get people to recognize that, even the littlest things have a huge impact, and that you really, and we'll talk about this a little bit later as well, but when a doctor says something to you, you don't necessarily have to take them by their word. The doctors are educated guess professionals. That's what they do. They guess their way to finding a solution with the facts that are put in front of them. And if you listen to that first doctor, and the doctor ends up being wrong, it's game over. So you really have to question everything.
Yeah, and what's powerful in that statement is that going over the last month with you, Sean, realizing one of the things that you said was getting a second diagnosis is perfectly fine, and you should do that because what we're finding, and very similar to Jordan's story, is about educating our doctors. You know, as you said, this was a situation where you felt it was worse than it was, and you took the initiative to get a second diagnosis. You worked for it, and one of the things is that instead of it, you know, once you were diagnosed and once you realized that unfortunately the first doctor, you know, there was a challenge there with him diagnosing it, you still kept it positive. But now your goal is to educate not only people out there on testicular cancer, but also doctors as well.
Right. I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, essentially, back in May of 2015, I noticed a lump. And it was a very small lump, but it was a lump. And I went to go see my primary doctor. And my primary doctor said, well, you know, it could probably just be an infection. And he suggested that I take antibiotics. So I took the antibiotics, and nothing occurred. We had an ultrasound. The ultrasound kind of, you know, saw something, but nothing that was an alert to cancer. And a few months went by, and suddenly, you know, the mass that was there started to grow. It started to get a little bit bigger, you know, size of a penny, size of a nickel. And so I turned around and I said, you know, what else can I do? He referred me to another doctor, urologist. And I went to go see this gentleman. This gentleman, you know, once again said, I think it's an infection. Let's put you on antibiotics again, you know. And so I was on antibiotics, and push come to shove, when it was finally all said and done, he said, you know, a lot of times these things just resolve themselves on their own. Yeah. What I suggest is, you know, call me in 6 months, and if you have any pain, you know, take some ibuprofen. And I left that office thinking, you know what, okay, yeah, he's a professional, he knows what he's talking about. Despite the fact that I have this thing that's growing and it hurts, maybe it is an infection. And so I thought about it, left it alone for a couple of weeks, spoke to some family up in Canada, and they convinced me that I needed to get another opinion. So I reached out to a bunch of friends, got a third opinion, went to walk into this doctor's office, and right away he was like, you know what, we need to do something about this immediately. And let's put you through the battery of tests one more time just to make sure. And what do you know, 2 days later I get a phone call, and you know, it's a tumor. At this point it was the size of probably a peach, a small peach or something. And you know, it got to a point where, I mean, all this time I knew at the back of my head there was something there.
Yeah.
It wasn't right, and I followed it through. But I mean, I don't think I would have been so quick to act if it wasn't for the people around me trying to convince me that I really did need to get that third opinion, the second opinion. So so of course that's what ended up happening. And as soon as he recognized what it was, and it was like boom, boom, boom. Okay, schedule you for surgery. Test your blood to see what your marker count. I didn't even know that the cancer would actually show up in the blood. If I would have known that 5 months earlier, I might have been able to have a diagnosis that much sooner. And to think that the first urologist that I went to go see didn't even think to do that, it just goes to show that you have to be a little bit more engaged. You have to do your homework. You have to, you really, in my way, I look at it, I have to educate people, but I also have to educate the doctors. Because if the doctors aren't asking the right questions, then they're letting people go through these situations that could have been totally avoided.
Yeah, certainly. And
it costs people's lives in the end. I mean, that's just the way that I see it.
Yeah, and Sean, I know that you know, you're on your journey over the next little while. Yesterday you had surgery. You know, we jokingly say you got your USB ports installed. Can you just tell me a little bit about that and then the next couple of steps for you?
So yeah. So as I found out that the cancer that was removed wasn't removed quick enough. The cancer has spread to my lower left lung and possibly other places. So I've gone through a battery of PET scans and MRIs and CAT scans, and hopefully in a couple of days I'll have a better idea of where it's spread, if it's spread anywhere else. But in order to treat it, I have to go through chemotherapy. And the thing about chemotherapy is there's different drugs for different cancers. So in this case, I have to go through a specific type of chemotherapy called BEP, which are 3 specific drugs. In order to do that, they pump like bags and bags full of these medicines, I guess you could call them, which are designed to destroy, the cancer. In order to do that, you can't just put it through your regular veins. Your veins won't be able to handle it. And you're going to go through it for 5 days in a row, for 3 to 5 hours of being hooked up to these machines. So what they do is they give you an option to put in either a PICC line in your arm or a central line. Both go into a major artery that goes into your heart. So yesterday I was preparing for this wonderful procedure of getting this central line, which was placed just, above my chest.
Yeah.
And this central line, it's creepy. I couldn't help it. I had to do the research online and look to see. And I tell you, that was probably the biggest mistake to do before the procedure. You're going to put a straw, literally snake it through my, my skin and through my artery into my heart. I was like, how am I going to do it? But I went in there, and of course, Ron, you know me, sense of humor. I talk to everybody, and I laugh and I joke, and I got to know the team that was doing it, and it really relaxed me. But I was awake for this procedure, and luckily for me, this doctor that I had, the surgeon, was phenomenal, because as he's giving me an injection to numb the pain, I'm thinking that's all he's doing. He's just giving me a couple little shots. Really, he was doing the whole procedure. So when I said, okay, I don't feel anything anymore, he said, oh, I'm done. You don't have to worry about it. I'm like, done? What are you talking about? So all this anxiety that I had about getting this port, put in, is no big deal. So I'm recovering, and today I went into work, and people at work are like, what are you doing here? You just got surgery yesterday. I said, honestly, you guys are what get me through the day. If I'm by myself, you just think about all the things that can go wrong. But being around people, for me specifically, helps me deal with the scenario that I'm going through. So in about a week or so, starting on Monday, the February 8th, I start my first chemo treatment. So I'll be hooked up to this machine, and it's like a little lounge chair, supposedly. And literally, they're going to just plug this port right into my chest, and they're going to start the chemotherapy. And I'm going to do that for 5 days, and then rest for 3 weeks, and then come back for the second month and do it again for another 5 days, and I'll do this for 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
So.
And as you know, Sean will be there during that journey over the next number of weeks and number of months with you as well. And one of the other things that's coming up is on February 20th. I know that another fundraising event that you're involving yourself with cancer. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So yeah, I'm involved with a group that's called the Dolphins Cancer Challenge, and in the United States we have our football teams, and in Miami we have the Miami Dolphins, and the Miami Dolphins are associated with the University of Miami, which has the Canes, and so University of Miami has a cancer center called the Sylvester Cancer Center. And they've decided to push through this big campaign to raise money for cancer research. And I decided, early on, as soon as I learned I had cancer and that, I was going to have to deal with this, I felt that I wanted to find a way to contribute in some way to raise awareness, to raise money for the research. But more than that, I knew that it would be sometime around February that I would be going through my first stage of chemotherapy. And so I was looking at this as an opportunity to meet other people who either are currently going through chemotherapy or have beaten the cancer. Because I've heard that chemotherapy is depressing and it's gut-wrenching. And I saw this as an opportunity to really stand with other people and to kind of feed off of that positive energy and to help me get motivated for another 3, 4, 5 months as I go through this cancer. My hope, my wish is that I'm going to beat this thing.
Yes.
It's the guarantee. You got to fight it. In the end, I was joking about it the other day. You can eat healthy, you can take care of yourself, You can exercise, you can do everything right, and this thing will still come and get you. So, so that's what I'm going through. So I'm raising this money. It's actually on the website that I created in the donation section, gofireballs.com. I thought I would have a little fun with the name, and testicular cancer, it's usually kind of depressing, and I thought, go fireballs. How much crazier and fun can you get with that?
That is great. That is wonderful. So, it's amazing your story, Sean, and we will be definitely following it, like I said, over the next days, weeks, and months as well. And Jordan, who is an incredible inspiration for us as well, because on February 4th, World Cancer Day is coming up, and he's going to be doing a special event. But I don't want to talk about that because I want to talk about what really inspired Jordan and really brought him full circle with this and what he's doing on February 4th. And Jordan, your father was diagnosed with cancer, wasn't he?
Yes, Ron. So first of all, Sean, this is the first time we've met each other digitally. But your story and your attitude towards all of it is really inspirational. It's something. When my father was diagnosed, it was. He was the same way. Like it's really upsetting for him, and it's also upsetting for the family. And it was really important for him to not have the people around him sort of moping around and sad and getting really down in the dumps about it. It was, like you said, making sure that we keep a light atmosphere, smiling, joking around, keeping spirits up. That really got him through a lot of tough times. So. Your story is a huge inspiration, and I'm sure that it'll have a huge impact on people locally and now internationally as we get to share your story up here. So a little bit about my story. In January of 2012, my father was diagnosed with brain tumor. So it's called a glioblastoma brain tumor. It was, he wasn't misdiagnosed, but it was certainly something that had been there for a while, and through certain tests with certain doctors, it was missed. It wasn't. They didn't find it when they probably should have. So by the time they found it, basically it was a tumor the size of, a peach or an orange, right in the middle of his brain. So it was a little bit of a different story for us. We were told right from day one that this is not the type of thing that you can survive. It's not a matter of if, it's more a matter of when. And so right from day one, the goal was twofold. It was to, preserve a quality of life and to, see how long we could delay the inevitable, if you will. So, we were really lucky, in a couple ways. One, he was given about 12 to 14 months, and he made it about 26 months. So, we did really well on that end. And, like you were saying, each type of cancer has different types of chemo. So, there's a unique challenge that I've learned about since this whole thing happened, and the unique challenge with brain tumors is that Mother Nature has provided you with something called the blood-brain barrier. So it's basically, in layman's terms, it's basically a bag that goes around your brain that prevents things in your body from getting to your brain. It's really there to protect your brain. The issue is that most types of chemotherapy can't get through the blood-brain barrier. So what they would typically like to use to treat brain tumors, it won't work. It won't get to the brain. So the type of chemotherapy that he took was actually in a pill form. And he was really fortunate in the fact that the side effects from this chemotherapy are relatively speaking, very small. It wasn't, what you hear a lot of other chemotherapies being like, and it was not a comfortable time for him. It was not, something he wanted to do, obviously, but it was not as bad as it could have been. So in terms of prolonging the inevitable and preserving a quality of life, we were successful in that. But, you know, I'll get a little bit into what we, as a family, my family has done to try and help further research specifically for brain tumors. He was treated at a cancer center at a hospital called Sunnybrook, which is here in Toronto. And basically, what we've done is we've created, our family has created this program called the Michael Rossman Brain Tumor Lectureship. So the point of it is to educate the public, but more so, the goal of it is a little bit more specific. We want to educate doctors on, you know, what different cancer centers across the world are doing, and we want to help specifically people who are suffering from this same type of cancer, help them navigate the system. So if there's clinical trials that they're interested in, or there's certain you know, treatment facilities that are abroad and not just in Toronto, we want to help them navigate through that system. So in October, we had our first annual event. So we brought in a Dr. Reardon from the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute with Harvard, and he is an expert in something called immunotherapy, which I won't get into because it's way over my head. But basically, you know, we were talking with my dad's oncologist at Sunnybrook, and we said, like, you know, what can we do that's actually going to have an impact? Cancer, in general, is heavily funded, but sometimes you feel when you donate to the Cancer Society of Canada, you feel like that, you know, those dollars may be lost in this big world of who knows what. So we said we want to have something that has an impact. So as an oncologist, what do you guys want? Like, what does the medical community say? We really need this. So what he highlighted was, you know, he said magic really happens when doctors from cancer centers across the world get together and talk about what they're working on and share ideas. And that's really where a lot of the breakthroughs in the last few decades have happened. When one doctor from a city in the West Coast comes over to talk to a doctor on this coast, and they compare notes, and, you know, the doctor may say, oh, you're working on something, and that may be the key to what we've been trying to figure out. So when you bring them together and they communicate, that's where a lot of these breakthroughs have happened. So we've tried to bring in doctors from abroad to come and talk to the doctors here at our cancer center at Sunnybrook. And also, so we had I would say about 15, 20 doctors from Sunnybrook, and we had about 60 to 80 patients and their family. That, you know, we opened it up to a question and answer period, and there were a lot of patients that really, you know, as you can relate to, Sean, I'm sure you get this horrible diagnosis, and you know, you're in shock, and then you say, now what? Like, where do I go from here?
Right.
So
Yeah.
Part of our goal is to help people, you know, realize what's that first step, or maybe what's that next step. So that's really what we're trying to do.
And one of the things, Jordan, is coming up on February 4th, World Cancer Day. You're doing something extra special as well at 11 a.m. on the February 4th at the Royal Victoria Hospital here in Barrie, Ontario, Canada. You're going to be doing something as well. What are you going to be doing that day?
Well, Ron, you know, it's interesting. I've had all this great feedback since I started talking about it, and people say that's great. I'm, you know, really happy. What I'm doing is really not all that brave. I'm shaving my head. I've been growing my hair out for it. My hair, I'm like a few weeks past due on a haircut. So I'm shaving it for World Cancer Day, which really, you know, that was sort of my first idea of what I could do this year. And then, you know, from there, I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be a great event. It's going to be, you know, like you were saying, Sean, it's a horrible disease. Can be a very depressing time for a lot of people. So I think it is important to add a little bit of, you know, a little bit of fun to the raising awareness of it and the raising money. So I'm shaving my head, but further from that, I'm also going to be trying to raise a bunch of money this year as well, which will have a much greater impact than just shaving my head. But that's where I'm starting.
Jordan, if I could, I would fly right up to Toronto and I would shave your head for you.
That would be amazing.
Actually, I'll see what I can do. See if I can pull that one off. But
well, Sean, I'm planning on making this an annual event. So if that offer stands, I'm going to hold you to it for next year. If this week doesn't work out.
Sure, absolutely. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the fun and it is a huge part of it. I mean, I think for me the most difficult challenge of the cancer diagnosis wasn't for me personally, because I'm a strong person and I have a very positive mindset. Ron said it before. I don't see issues as problems. I see them as opportunities to solve them. And so the challenge for me was sharing the information that I had just learned with my friends and with my family. And I remember the day that I received my diagnosis, I walked out of the office and I drove and I was on the phone with my insurance company for like an hour and a half, driving back to work thinking I was perfectly fine. And then I went to sit down with our HR manager in the office, and I muttered out the words, "I have cancer," and had a complete meltdown. And it was this crazy, bit of emotion, and all I could think about was, I can't have these breakdowns with family members and with my close friends, because I didn't want them to feel, distraught. Because it's interesting, you have this moment of almost like delivering depressing news, and then you share it with somebody and they break down, and then you feed off of that. And so my idea with it was, I'm gonna deliver it with a smile.
Yeah.
As horrible as it possibly can be, I'm gonna deliver it with a smile. I'm gonna deliver it with optimism.
Yes.
Because if they laugh and they smile, then it's easier for me to deal with, and it's easier for all of us to deal with. It's the single, I think, biggest challenge when dealing with cancer is the stigma around it. I mean, your charity actually blows my mind, because, when you look up testicular cancer 30, 40 years ago, the odds of survival were 5%, 0.5%. People who got it, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, they were almost certainly, written off as not being able to survive it. And it was because chemotherapy was in its infancy, and the drugs that they were using weren't really having any effect. And it's that collaboration between surgeons and scientists and oncologists that helped them realize that if you take these 3 independent drugs used by themselves that accomplish nothing, and you combine them into a single treatment, you suddenly flip the odds. So now the odds are 95% survival rate, 5% fatality rate. And it's because of that collaboration, and so listening to you, I mean, this is the first time I'm really actually hearing about your charity and what you're actually trying to accomplish. And I'm seeing, it's without, if there wasn't that collaboration 40 years ago, specific to the type of cancer that I have, my odds would be that low. So I'm all for it. I'm all for the idea of creating this collaboration and this sharing of information, not just between the doctors, but also between patients, and really informing everybody. Because I think if we do that, God knows there's probably somebody out here who's come up with one great solution, and another person 12,000 miles away on the other side of the planet who's also come up with a great solution. It's a matter of just bringing the two of them together.
Exactly.
Yeah, extremely well put, Sean. And then this is, as all of us know here, Jordan and Sean just met each other today, and bringing the story together and bringing this across borders is truly inspirational. So I just want to thank both of you, both Sean and Jordan. And Sean, will be watching you very carefully throughout the next couple of weeks, couple of months, and keep smiling. I love that tagline so bad. It's just.
By the way, you know, I would shave my head as well, but I don't have very much to get.
It wouldn't be a very big deal.
Yeah.
So what a great lead in there. On February 4th at RVH, Royal Victoria Hospital here in Barrie, Ontario, at 11 a.m., Jordan will be shaving his head and in memory of his father, as well as raising money for cancer. And Sean, on February 20th, down there in the beautiful Miami, beautiful weather, you're going to be down there with the Dolphins raising money and awareness. So,
hey, Ron, I just want to really quickly plug how I'm going to be raising this money this year.
Yes.
So it's a two-part approach. I will be sharing a page where people can go and make donations, but I've also named it Commissions for Cancer. As you know, you well know, Ron, I'm a real estate agent and wanted to use my network and business to try and bring in some more money than I could have maybe just donated on my own. So I've called this Commission for Cancer, where the first deal that I get before March 1st, now they don't have to buy or sell a house before March 1st, they just have to say they want to. The first one, I'll be donating 100% of my commission check to the RVH Cancer Center, and on all of the other paychecks after that, I'll be donating 25%. So that's sort of the main way I'm trying to raise the bulk of the money, and then also through peer donations online.
Yeah, and Jordan, they can reach out to you through Facebook, obviously, at Jordan Rossman. You can find him there as well as with Sean at Fireballs. Is it the Fireballs or Fireballs.com?
GoFireballs.com. And
Go Fireball.
Facebook as well. It's Go Fireballs as well on there.
I'll make sure when we post this YouTube video that the link for both of your Facebook page and for your website, Sean, are in the section below the video.
Sure. Thank you.
Wonderful, guys. Thank you so much and in sharing your inspiring story. So thank you both, Sean and Jordan. Well, have a good evening.
You too.
Take care. Thanks, Ron. Thanks, Sean.